Part 1: The Village Before Dawn. Amidst the unwavering embrace of the ancient mountains, the small village of Stonebreeze slowly awakened to the sound of the wind rustling through the weathered stones. Nestled in a cradle of jagged peaks that pierced the pre-dawn sky, the village was a cluster of humble stone cottages, their roofs capped with moss and thatch, enduring centuries of harsh winters and fleeting summers. Mists danced subtly over the rooftops, weaving ethereal patterns that mingled with the scent of wet earth, dried herbs, and the faint, smoky residue of last night's hearth fires permeating the simple houses. Elara lay awake in the cold early morning, her breath forming faint clouds in the chill air of her modest bedchamber. Pale light filtered through the narrow window slits, crafted from warped wooden frames and oiled parchment, gently touching her sleepy face with fingers of silver. She let herself be carried away by the distant murmur of sheep stirring in their pens and the timid song of birds, wrens and finches, announcing the new day from the safety of the eaves. Inside the stone house she shared with her grandmother, every object held stories. The scarred oak table etched with knife marks from generations of meal preparations, the clay jars brimming with salves and poultices, whispering of ancient wisdom and silent hope passed down like heirlooms. As her grandmother, Mira, with hands gnarled like the roots of an elder oak, carefully prepared medicines from roots and leaves gathered from the nearby hills, Elara felt a trembling restlessness in her chest. Mira hummed an old lullaby under her breath, her silver hair tied back with a leather cord, eyes sharp despite the years. The routine was familiar, grinding pestles and mortars, infusing oils with the essence of feverfew and willow bark. But Elara's unease wasn't just the biting cold of that morning or the unchanging cycle of seasons. Something much greater was calling her, something invisible and powerful, like the whispering of the wind in the ancient trees of the encircling forest, trees said to be as old as the mountains themselves, their branches twisted into shapes that mimicked forgotten runes. She remembered her grandmother's tales vividly, recounted by the flickering light of tallow candles on stormy evenings. Legendary tales of the flame of ether, the eternal fire that maintained the balance between light and shadow in the world. They said this flame had existed since before time began, born from the heart of creation itself, a pulsating core of pure energy guarded in a hidden sanctum deep within the world's veiled realms. If it ever went out, extinguished by greed, despair, or the encroaching void, the world would be plunged into eternal darkness, where shadows would devour the light, and life itself would wither into oblivion. And that only someone with a pure heart, willing to face their own fears and the trials of the spirit, could find and protect this flame. The keeper, Mira would say, her voice grave, is not chosen by strength of arm but by the fire within. Elara closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath, feeling the cool, damp air drifting in through the half-open window, carrying the earthy tang of impending rain. Voices from the past danced in her memory, the elders' advice during village gatherings under the great oak, the murmurs of superstitious neighbors who crossed themselves at mentions of the forest, the cryptic words from that fateful night when the forest called her name in a dream, its voice like wind through hollow bones. Balance is everything, her grandmother insisted, pausing to lay a weathered hand on Elara's shoulder. It is what sustains life, weaving light through shadow as the dawn pierces the night. That day she didn't just carry her basket of herbs, woven from willow reeds and lined with soft lamb's wool. She also carried an invisible promise, a spark of destiny igniting in her soul. Each step along the narrow streets, filled with stones smoothed by the wear of countless seasons and the tread of villagers' boots, was marked by the faint light that watched over every soul in that small world. Children played in the doorways, their laughter a brief counterpoint to the solemnity, while elders nodded from their porches, their faces lined with the weight of unspoken lore. As her eyes searched the horizon bounded by the dense, dark forest, a wall of ancient pines and oaks, their canopy so thick it swallowed the sun, the restlessness within her grew, pulsing with the rapid rhythm of her heart, urging her toward the unknown. Reaching the edge of the forest, where the village's cobblestones gave way to tangled undergrowth and moss-covered roots, Elara felt the air change. Silence enveloped everything like a heavy veil, muting the world behind her. There was no bird song, no rustling of leaves in the breeze, no distant bleat of livestock. There was only a profound stillness, capable of amplifying one's own sigh, the precise second of time ticking in one's veins. Her body shivered, not from cold alone, but from the prickling sense of unseen eyes upon her. Something there, beyond common knowledge and the safety of village boundaries, was watching. Perhaps a guardian spirit or something darker, testing her resolve. And then a distant whisper pierced the quiet, almost a lilting song, calling her name with an ancient melody only she could understand. It wove through the trees like threads of silk, evoking images of glowing embers and forgotten paths. As if obeying a call stronger than her own fear, stronger than the warnings etched into her mind, Elara took the first step between the twisted trunks, her boots sinking into the soft, loamy earth. Branches arched overhead like skeletal fingers, and the air grew thick with the scent of pine resin and decay. She entered a world where past, present, and future seemed to intertwine in a silent dance of shadows and light, the forest's heart beating in sync with her own. Deeper in, faint glimmers appeared, will-o'-the-wisps flickering at the edge of vision, or perhaps illusions born of her awakening senses. The path narrowed, forcing her to duck under low-hanging boughs heavy with dew, and with each step, the whisper grew clearer, guiding her toward a clearing where the first rays of dawn pierced the canopy, illuminating a stone altar etched with glowing symbols. Here the flame of ether's echo called loudest, awakening the inner light she had always carried but never known. If this expanded tale of Elara's awakening stirs the flame of adventure, and the allure of the unknown within you, join us on this epic journey. Subscribe to follow every twist in her path as the keeper of the flame, and help spread this light by sharing your impressions, theories, or favorite moments in the comments below. Your engagement fuels the magic pulsing through these narratives and inspires new chapters in worlds of wonder. What do you think awaits Elara next? 1. For Srapido, how can Grok help? Part 2. The call and the crossing of the threshold. The air at the forest's edge hung dense and charged, saturated with ancient mysteries that seemed to whisper a forgotten song, carried on ethereal currents older than the mountain's cradling stone breeze. These winds bore traces of epochs long past, echoes of primordial chants sung by the world's first guardians, now reduced to faint harmonies that stirred the soul. Elara walked slowly, her leather boots sinking into the plush mossy underfoot with deliberate, reverent care, feeling each leaf, twig, and pebble beneath her as if they were individual notes of an ancient melody composed by the earth itself. Her soul, attuned more deeply than her conscious mind could grasp, recognized and hummed in response, a subtle vibration rising from her core, syncing her essence with the forest's timeless rhythm. The strong scent of towering sentinel pines, their needles sharp and resinous, mingled with the rich, loamy dampness of the earth, fertile black soil teeming with unseen life, filled her lungs like a sacred incense, sharpening her awareness and banishing the last vestiges of village-bound hesitation. Sunlight, ever reluctant to breach the impenetrable canopy of interlocking branches, filtered down in sparse, hesitant shafts, dappling the forest floor in a shifting mosaic of golden light and inky obscurity, where elongated shadows stretched like the silver fingers of spectral hands reaching from the trunk's furrowed bark. In the distance, a light breeze stirred to life, gathering strength as it swept through the undergrowth, pushing back the heavy mist like a veil tearing asunder in a divine revelation. It unveiled glimpses of hidden wonders, dew-kissed ferns unfurling like emerald scrolls, faintly glowing fungi clusters clinging to weathered bark with bioluminescent pulses, and the occasional flash of iridescent insect wings catching the light. This was the call of the forest incarnate, a silent but urgent summons that resonated deep within her bones, tugging at the invisible threads of destiny woven into her being by the loom of fate. Elara's heart pounded rapidly, a primal drumbeat of leather-skinned war drums echoing the raw instincts that propelled her beyond the village's weathered boundaries, compelling her to defy the cautionary tales that had long served as both shield and shackle, preserving the fragile peace of Stonebreeze while concealing the wild, pulsating truths of the beyond. She kept her eyes fixed on the narrow path unfolding before her like a scroll of prophecy, a serpentine trail etched by the passage of centuries-old wanderers, perhaps ancient pilgrims or lost seekers before her. Its surface a labyrinth of intertwined roots that forged living arteries through the soil. These roots pulsed faintly under the touch of her will, as if the earth itself acknowledged her presence with a subtle throb of recognition, veins of vitality connecting her to the forest's vast neural network. With every measured step, the forest seemed to watch her with predatory curiosity and ancient wisdom, branches creaking softly like the eyes of elder guardians narrowing in scrutiny, leaves shimmering in a chorus of approval or veiled warning, the very air thickening with expectant energy, testing her resolve and serenity against the encroaching unknown. probing for any crack in her burgeoning courage. In previous years, tales of the forest had seeped into the village of Stonebreeze like insidious shadows, whispered around crackling hearth fires during the long howling nights as secret stories crafted more to frighten wide-eyed children with visions of devouring maws and endless labyrinths than to unveil the unvarnished, perilous truth. Elders, their voices gravelly with age and unspoken encounters, spoke of spectral wanderers who ventured in and vanished without trace, of shadow beasts with emberglow eyes that hunted the unwary, and treacherous paths that twisted into eternal loops, trapping souls in loops of regret. But now, as Elara pressed onward with growing determination, she pierced the illusion. These tales were mere ghosts of words and half-remembered fears, deliberate veils draped over the primordial power of the ether flame, a celestial fire forged in the cosmos dawn, crying out across the ages for a worthy guardian to rekindle its waning embers and restore the world's fragile equilibrium between light's nurture and shadow's necessary purge. The silence that enveloped her was more than the mere absence of sound. It was a sacred void. A profound hush where the boundaries between the physical realm of flesh and stone, and the spiritual ether of dreams and divinities dissolved like mist before the sun's first blush. Time warped here, stretching into languid eternities or contracting to heartbeats, with echoes of ancient rituals, drums of bone, chants in lost tongues, lingering palpably in the charged air. And there, at that precise, fateful moment, the veil thinned to fragile translucence, powerless to resist the voice that bloomed in her mind and soul like a radiant lotus. Elara, keeper of the eternal, awaken, come to me. It manifested as a chorus of whispering winds, rustling leaves and distant thunder, intimate as a lover's breath yet vast as the stars, weaving compulsion and comfort in equal measure, urging her inexorably forward. She paused at the threshold, a liminal archway of vine-draped stones half buried in moss, the weight of irrevocable choice crushing down like the forest's primordial gravity, fear slithering through her veins with insidious whispers to retreat to the sanctuary of Stonebreeze, to Myra's hearth aglow with familiar warmth, to the predictable rhythm of herb gathering and village life she might forfeit forever. Unbidden visions assailed her. The cobblestone streets alive with children's laughter, her grandmother's piercing eyes brimming with pride and sorrow, the safe illusion of a life untested. Yet a greater force surged within, disarming her doubts like dawn's scattering night, an inner light kindling to match the flame's distant call. Guiding her was an ancient teaching, etched indelibly in her memory by Myra's steady, calloused hand during interminable winter nights by the fire. When the world falls silent and the shadows press close, listen to your heart's quiet fire. It will illuminate the path that only you, the chosen, can walk, for the flame selects not the bold warrior, but the true vessel of light. Without hesitation, her spirit steeled like forged steel in the flame's forge. Elara crossed the threshold into the forest's primordial embrace, her footfall echoing as if upon the anvil of destiny. She felt herself stepping not merely over a physical barrier of twisted roots and thorny underbrush, but a profound temporal and existential rift, a shimmering divide between the mundane tapestry of villagers' daily toil and the mythic realm where legends breathed, bled, and burned with visceral reality. Shadows danced around her like intangible sentinels, weaving intricate protective wards that repelled darker entities slinking in the periphery, their forms dissolving at the edges of her vision. The mist, once an impenetrable obstacle veiling perils, now transmuted into a luminous cloak enveloping her form, its cool, spectral tendrils brushing her skin like the reassuring hands of ancestral spirits, granting camouflage and courage in equal measure. Her senses ignited to hypervivid clarity amid the gloom. The intoxicating perfume of wet soil mingled with decaying leaves and blooming nightshade, the subtle symphony of leaves rustling in an unfelt breeze like pages of a cosmic tome turning, and the thunderous rhythm of her own pulse in her temples, harmonizing with the forest's collective sigh, a low resonant hum emanating from the heartwood of colossal trees, as if the woodland itself respired in unison with her quest. Deeper she ventured, memories and visions intertwining past and present in a radiant tapestry of revelation. Cherished faces from her youth flickering like hearth flames in the wind, enigmatic figures cloaked in auroral light beckoning from the borders of dreamscapes, unspoken vows from the flame's essence pulsing through her veins, and an inescapable conviction that this crossing would irrevocably transmute not only the essence of her life, from village girl to legendary keeper, but the very balance of the world, teetering on the precipice of light's triumph or shadow's dominion. Each step forward became a profound act of courage, a silent, defiant proclamation etched into the ether against the terror of the abyss. A rebellion that parted thorny vines as if by divine command and ignited faint, arcane runes on tree trunks, branding her passage with glowing sigils of acceptance. The path twisted onward toward a concealed glade, cradle of the first true ordeal, where the flame's whisper swelled into a symphonic roar, heralding trials of elemental fire, introspective spirit, and unyielding will that would forge her into the guardian the world so desperately needed. If this deepened immersion into Elara's threshold crossing awakens your inner adventurer and the electric pull of destiny, join our fellowship on this enchanted odyssey. Subscribe to witness every heart-stirring episode unfold. Share this epic moment with kindred spirits hungry for myth, and kindle the discussion in the comments. What formidable trials or allies do you envision challenging the Keeper next? Your voices amplify our collective flame, hurtling the tale toward uncharted realms brimming with peril and wonder. Part 3: The Whispering Forest. As Elara penetrated deeper into the labyrinthine heart of the forest, the very fabric of reality around her began to shift and warp, yielding to the subtle enchantments woven into its ancient core. The air thickened into an almost palpable texture, heavy and alive, rich with the layered scents of velvet moss carpeting fallen logs, damp bark exhaling earthy secrets, and wildflowers, delicate blooms of amethyst and gold, forgotten by time's relentless march, releasing their nectar-sweet perfume in hidden glades. Rays of sunlight, bold intruders from the world above, filtered in delicate, golden strokes through the dense canopy of interlocking branches, illuminating tiny, ethereal spots on the leaf-strewn ground that danced like echoes of lives long past. Faint imprints of ancient footsteps, spectral outlines of forgotten ceremonies, or perhaps the lingering auras of guardians who had walked this path eons before. The tree trunks, colossal and twisted like the spines of slumbering titans, bore intricate stories etched into their weathered cracks and cloaked in lush moss tapestries. They stood as silent, eternal witnesses to epochs when raw magic permeated every breath of the earth, when the veil between realms was as thin as morning dew. Gradually, as Elara attuned herself to the woodland's rhythm, she learned to decipher its hidden language, not through spoken words, but as a grand symphony of sensory whispers. The rustle of leaves composing haunting refrains, the mingling aromas evoking visceral emotions, and tactile sensations that rippled across her skin like invisible currents, speaking directly to the soul of any wanderer willing to hush their fears and truly listen. It was as if the forest itself gave sentient life to her every fleeting thought, mirroring her inner world in its verdant theater. The whisper of leaves overhead echoed melodies of ancient rituals, chants of protection invoked by druidic circles under starlit skies, and wards against encroaching darkness, their tones both soothing lullaby and stern admonition. Shadows leaped and swirled in a subtle hypnotic ballet across the forest floor, blending the cool embrace of darkness with the warm kiss of light, weaving threads of fear and hope into an intricate pattern that challenged her perception of duality. At various points along the winding trail, she paused to press her palm against the cool, textured bark of these arboreal sentinels, only to feel a strange inner warmth radiating from their depths, the distant, throbbing pulse of the ether flame itself, a cosmic heartbeat syncing with her own, infusing her veins with ethereal fire. The weight of this legendary power swelled in her chest like a burgeoning star, framing her nascent mission with profound gravity and transcendent beauty, reminding her that she was no mere villager, but a vessel chosen to safeguard the equilibrium of existence. However, tranquility in the whispering forest was but a fragile illusion, pierced by undercurrents of peril that tested the mettle of even the boldest souls. Suspicious movements flickered in the periphery, ethereal shapes darting through the underbrush, fleeting shadows that coalesced into half-formed silhouettes of prowling beasts or spectral entities born of old grudges. More ancient presences stirred in the gloom, gnarled root wraiths uncoiling from the soil with whispers of malice, or luminous eyes gleaming from hollowed trunks, guardians turned tricksters assessing her worthiness. These encounters stirred a primal chill, yet Elara had forged her resolve in the crucible of the threshold. She chose not to succumb to fear, transforming each brush with the uncanny, each rustle that might herald ambush, each sudden gust carrying ominous murmurs, into a forge of lessons, hammering her spirit into unyielding resilience. Intimate memories flooded back unbidden, cascading like a gentle brook through her mind. Echoes of childhood laughter ringing in sun-dappled meadows on the village outskirts, light footsteps wandering the safer wood edges in playful exploration, and heartfelt conversations with her grandmother Mira by the hearth, unraveling the invisible balance between light's nurturing radiance and shadow's essential forge of growth. Today these teachings crystallized into a luminous shield, enveloping her heart in an armor of ancestral wisdom, repelling doubts with reminders of the flame's eternal dance. Yet memories were double-edged, summoning fears that clawed at her edges, the gnawing dread of failure, of proving unworthy of the call, the soul-piercing uncertainty of not being enough to bear the flame's burden. Visions of Stonebreeze shrouded in encroaching darkness should she falter. She knew, deep in her quickening spirit, that the true journey unfurled not merely through tangled paths and arcane trials, but within the labyrinth of her own psyche, where personal shadows would manifest as her greatest adversaries, demanding confrontation and transcendence. And it was in this delicate state of surrender, yielding to the forest's will while clutching fierce determination, that Elara heard the call anew, manifesting as an almost musical whisper cascading through the boughs, crystalline and compelling, not a mere request, but an irresistible invitation to unfurl her heart like a bloom to the sun, to embrace the revelations and rigors yet to unfold. The voice wove promises of power and peril, guiding her toward a veiled sanctum where roots intertwined into throne-like seats and bioluminescent vines pulsed with inner light. Each step propelled her closer to the throbbing unknown, where light and shadow intertwined in eternal embrace, and the raw clay of destiny began to take vivid shape, molding her into the keeper foretold in legends. If the enchanting depths of the whispering forest stir your soul and kindle your thirst for Elara's odyssey of inner and outer trials, subscribe to immerse yourself in every unfolding chapter of discovery and courage. Share this invocation to light with fellow dreamers, and let your comments fuel the collective flame of adventure. What whispers or shadows do you sense lurking ahead for our keeper? Your engagement is the vital spark that sustains this magical narrative's blaze. Part for the Border Guardian. Elara pressed onward through the encroaching thicket, where the trees grew ever denser, their ancient boughs intertwining like the gnarled fingers of primordial giants locked in eternal vigil. The forest deepened into twilight realms, shadows pooling in inky hollows, and the air crackled with an invisible yet palpable energy, a vibrating string of cosmic tension, humming with the weight of forgotten ages, tales of cataclysmic battles between light and void etched into the ether itself. With each deliberate step along the root-woven path, her woven bracelets, adorned with charms of river stones and dried herbs from Myra's garden, jingled softly, their chime echoing ancient rhythms that synced with the forest's colossal heartbeat, a subterranean thrum rising from the earth's core, as if the woodland acknowledged her as kin. Suddenly, the profound silence shattered like fragile crystal, pierced by a deep, drawn-out sound, a resonant growl reverberating through the labyrinth of roots and branches, shaking dew from leaves and stirring dormant energies in the soil. From the swirling shadows coalesced an imposing creature, a massive silver wolf, its fur shimmering like moonlight on frost-kissed steel, eyes ablaze with an otherworldly luminescence as if they cradled captured stars from the night's velvet expanse. Its presence commanded instantaneous respect, radiating an aura of unyielding authority. This was no mere beast of fang and claw, but an ancient protector, an emissary forged by the forest's primordial will, bound to safeguard the sacred boundaries where worlds converged. Before Elara could muster a reaction, her hand instinctively reaching for the dagger at her belt, pulse racing like a caged storm, she felt a voice unfurl in her mind, calm and steady as the flow of an eternal river, infused with the raw power and timeless wisdom of ages unspoken. It bypassed mortal ears, resonating directly with her soul in a telepathic communion that bypassed the veil of flesh. Welcome, young guardian of the flame. Many have quailed at this threshold, their spirits fracturing under its gaze. Few have proven worthy to proceed into the veiled realms beyond. The call has echoed through eons, a clarion across the void. You have finally arrived as foretold. The wolf, revealed in her mind's eye as Kale, the border guardian, stood motionless, his starry gaze piercing her essence, weighing her heart against the scales of destiny. Elara, her heart pounding a frantic tattoo against her ribs, steadied her breath and replied aloud, her voice trembling yet resolute. I'm no warrior forged in battles, no hero clad in armor. I'm just a simple villager from Stonebreeze, burdened with dreams that outstrip my strength and doubts that gnaw at my resolve. Why was I chosen for this impossible mantle? Kale's ethereal voice rippled through her thoughts once more, his eyes locking onto hers with unblinking intensity, reflecting galaxies of trials endured. The eternal fire of ether does not anoint the strongest warrior with their blade-scarred might, nor the oldest sage with tomes of arcane lore. It chooses the one who harbors the rare courage to confront the abyss of her own fears, to stare into the mirror of the soul and emerge unbowed. The flame wavers now, its sacred light flickering as the ancient balance shatters under tides of encroaching shadow. Greed of forgotten tyrants, despair of warring realms. It needs you, vessel of pure intent, more than you yet comprehend. For your heart's hidden ember mirrors its own asterisk. Beneath the vaulted canopy, where bioluminescent vines draped like celestial tapestries, Kale gestured with a majestic paw toward the black stone archway looming before them. A monolithic portal carved from obsidian veined with quartz, inscribed with living runes that pulsed with a silvery, ethereal glow, shifting like liquid starlight in response to their presence. This is the threshold, the gauntlet between worlds, etched by the first keepers in the dawn of creation. Beyond lies the shadow maze, a labyrinthine crucible testing body against peril, mind against illusion, and spirit against the tempests within. Many have plunged into its depths and never returned, ensnared not by fang or trap alone, but by the spectral ghosts of their regrets, manifesting as devouring wraiths that prey on unresolved shadows. Elara felt the weight of this cosmic responsibility swell like a gathering tempest in her chest, threatening to crush her beneath its immensity, yet something ignited within. A defiant spark of determination, fanned by the flame's distant warmth, coupled with the irrefutable knowledge that retreat would doom the world to twilight's embrace. Kale continued, his voice a balm of ancient counsel, resonant as thunder wrapped in silk. True courage is not the banishment of fear, that illusory specter. It is the unyielding will to advance, step by shadowed step, even as fear claws at your heels and whispers of surrender. Before the crossing, as the archway's runes flared brighter in anticipation, Elara voiced her plea, her eyes searching Kale's luminous gaze. Grant me a sign, an amulet of protection, or the wisdom to navigate the horrors ahead. I fear my mortal frailties will unravel me. In response, Kale lowered his noble head, and from the folds of his spectral mane materialized a shard of glowing crystal, jagged yet flawless, hot as freshly kindled embers against her palm, pulsing with the captive essence of the eternal flame, a fragment of pure etheric light that thrummed in harmony with her heartbeat. Bear this relic as your talisman, a beacon to remind you that you carry the flame's light woven into your very being, sufficient to pierce the deepest darkness and banish the void's illusions. Whispers cascaded among the leaves overhead, swelling into an almost magical symphony of rustling fronds and harmonic winds, a celestial orchestra announcing the imminence of their sacred crossing, as if the forest itself held its breath in reverence. With a deep centering sigh that drew in the charged energies of the woodland and the burgeoning power of the ether flame coursing through her veins, Elara clasped the crystal shard, its warmth stealing her spirit. She prepared to step through the threshold, the archway's runes blazing a path into the shadow maze, where trials of labyrinthine deceit and inner demons awaited the keeper's unyielding resolve. If the resonant call to courage and the guardian's wisdom stir your spirit, subscribe to journey alongside Elara through the threshold's perils, and share the radiant light of this adventure with others. Together we fan the flame of hope, unlocking the arcane secrets that beckon beyond. What shadows or revelations do you anticipate in the maze? Your voices illuminate the path forward. Part 5: The Threshold and the Entrance to the Labyrinth. The boundary between the known world of whispering woods and the uncharted void of the unknown loomed before Elara as a monolithic structure forged from living shadows and unyielding black stone. An immense archway sculpted by the hands of primordial architects in an era when gods still walked the earth. Its surfaces writhed with intricate carvings, adorned with runes that pulsed with an otherworldly silver light, flaring brighter in rhythmic cadence as she drew near, as if sensing the keeper's approach and awakening from eons of slumber. The ground beneath her boots transformed into a mosaic of interwoven ancient symbols, a sacred lexicon of the etheric flame etched into the bedrock, cryptic glyphs depicting cycles of creation and cataclysm, tales of balance and betrayal whose meanings eluded all but the most enlightened, yet instilled universal dread in those who beheld them, whispers of perils that had claimed countless souls. The air encircling the arch hung thick and oppressive, crackling with a subtle, arcane electricity that raised the fine hairs on the nape of Elara's neck and sent tingling currents dancing across her skin, like the breath of a storm god stirring to life. Each inhalation felt like a solemn vow, an irrevocable invitation to forsake the familiar embrace of stone breeze and the forest's verdant guardianship, plunging into realms where mortality frayed at the edges. She accepted this summons with a turbulent alchemy of visceral fear, clenching her fists against the urge to flee, and profound, unshakable faith in the flame's ancient decree. The weight of her choice bore down upon her shoulders like the Atlas of worlds, as if she bore not merely her own fragile form, but the intertwined fates of her village's hearths, the forest's eternal vigil, and the fragile equilibrium teetering between light's salvation and shadow's dominion. Kale, the silver wolf guardian, stood sentinel beside her, his majestic form statuesque in the runelit gloom, his starry eyes gleaming with layers of unspoken meaning, centuries of vigilance etched into their depths. His telepathic voice resonated once more in the charged atmosphere, steady as forged steel yet laced with solemn gravity. What lies beyond this archway is no mere passage, but a forge of the soul, a merciless test of courage unyielding and truth unvarnished. The shadow maze devours the weak of will and those who cower from the tempests raging in their own hearts. It mirrors your essence, amplifying every doubt into devouring specters, every resolve into radiant armor. Elara's fingers sought the crystal shard gifted by Kale, its surface warm as a captured ember against her palm, radiating a comforting pulse that anchored her amid the yawning vastness of the abyss ahead. A tangible fragment of the ether flame, whispering assurances of inner light. With a deep, fortifying sigh that drew the electric air into her lungs, she planted her feet upon the inscribed ground, feeling each arcane symbol ignite beneath the soles of her worn boots like veins of molten silver, the earth itself seeming to guide her steps with subtle vibrations, as if the threshold approved her worthiness and urged her onward into destiny's crucible. As she crossed the threshold, the world underwent a cataclysmic metamorphosis. The dappled dimness of the encircling trees vanished in an instant, engulfed by a pervasive shadow that transcended mere absence of light. It was a sentient entity, alive with malevolent intelligence, coiling tendrils that watched her every movement with predatory curiosity, probing for weakness. The enclosing walls manifested as seamless expanses of smooth black stone, polished to a mirror-like metallic sheen that reflected distorted echoes of her form, rippling with undulating waves akin to the slow, profound inhalations of some colossal, slumbering leviathan beneath the labyrinth's foundations. An absolute silence reigned, profound and suffocating, broken only by the rhythmic echo of Elara's own footsteps, each clap reverberating off the labyrinthine walls like the tolling of a doomsday bell, amplifying the visceral sensation that she had breached a realm where time twisted into Mobius loops and space folded upon itself in infinite regressions, disorienting the senses and blurring the line between wanderer and prison. Her emotions roiled in a tempestuous surge, defiance blazing like a defiant torch against the void, intermingled with raw vulnerability that laid her spirit bare, igniting an inner flame that crackled to life in her core, fanned by the crystal's persistent warmth. Stepping fully through the archway, runes flaring in a final blaze of farewell, Elara braced herself to confront not only the external enigmas of shifting corridors and illusory traps, but the insidious fears she had long buried within, manifesting now as whispered taunts from the shadows that slithered in her wake, personal ghosts risen to challenge the Keeper's mettle and forge her into legend. If the electric thrill of the threshold and the labyrinth's ominous embrace kindles the flame of adventure in your heart, join our quest by subscribing to witness Elara's harrowing trials unfold. Share your visions of the shadows ahead, ignite discussions in the comments, and fortify the collective light that propels this epic. What inner demons or deceptive paths do you foresee testing the Keeper? Your passion is the vital force sustaining this magical narrative's eternal glow. Part 6: The Challenges of the Shadow Maze. The Shadow Maze transcended mere stone and shadow. It was a living, sentient reflection of Elara's innermost soul, a metaphysical forge where psyche and peril intertwined in merciless symbiosis. As soon as her boots met the cold, unyielding dark stone of its labyrinthine floor, polished obsidian that drank light like a voracious abyss, the world around her awakened with a malevolent pulse and burgeoning consciousness. Walls undulated subtly, as if the maze itself drew breath in slow, ominous cycles, exhaling tendrils of chill mist laced with the acrid tang of suppressed regrets. It lay in wait like a primordial predator, poised to devour the unwary soul who faltered in its coils. with each tentative step through its intricate, ever-shifting passages, corridors that twisted upon themselves like serpents devouring tails. The air thickened into a suffocating pall, heavy with the weight of ancient memories and raw, unfiltered emotions. Echoes of lost keepers' laments, surges of forgotten betrayals, and the metallic undercurrent of impending revelation. Each crossroads manifested as both a divergent path and a profound existential test, forking into illusions of multiplicity where choices branched like veins of fate. Glowing symbols, arcane sigils of the ether flame, pulsed erratically across the smooth, mirror-like walls, narrating hidden sagas in a visual symphony. Fragmented vignettes of cosmic balances tipping into chaos, temporalities bleeding into one another like ink in water, birthing labyrinths nested within labyrinths, infinite regressions designed to erode sanity. Elara came to a visceral realization amid the disorientation. She was not ensnared by mere happenstance or capricious geometry. The maze compelled her to confront the buried strata of her fears and truths, excavating them from the subconscious depths and parading them as spectral adversaries, forcing evolution through agony. Shadows elongated with predatory intent, coalescing from the gloom into forms both hauntingly familiar and viscerally terrifying. Nightmarish amalgamations of her doubts and sorrows given grotesque, tangible flesh. Phantoms of village scorn, spectral echoes of Myra's stern warnings, and wraiths of unfulfilled dreams slithered forth, their whispers a cacophony of self-sabotage. Yet the most harrowing apparition was a distorted reflection of Elara herself, materializing at a shadowed nexus. A warped doppelganger with pallid skin stretched taut over angular bones, its eyes twin infernos of contempt and primal fear, mirroring her own gaze back at her in accusatory blaze. This shadow self embodied her innermost terrors, speaking in a hoarse glacial voice that clawed into her mind like frostbitten talons. Asterisk, you are not capable, frail child of stone breeze. You will never be enough. The flame demands gods, not village girls riddled with weakness. Turn back or perish in delusion. Asterisk. Elara halted mid-stride, the echo of her own distorted timbre reverberating through her bones, closing her eyes against the onslaught as a vice of tightness clamped her chest, threatening to shatter her resolve into irreparable shards. Sweat beaded on her brow, mingling with tears of raw vulnerability, the crystal shard in her grasp flaring hot as if in empathetic fury. In that crucible of despair, fragments of wisdom resurfaced like beacons. Her grandmother Myra's heartside counsel, imparted during blizzards that sealed them in, about the sacred imperative to embrace one's shadows, not flee them, so that the light within could unfurl and blossom unhindered, transmuting poison into potency. Summoning resolve from her core, Elara drew a deep, shuddering breath, the charged air igniting her lungs like bellows fanning embers. She declared firmly, her voice cutting through the psychic din with defiant clarity. Asterisk, I will not be held hostage by the fears I carry, nor chained by illusions of inadequacy. I am more than the sum of my doubts, the vessel of the flame, forged in humility and fire. Asterisk, a radiant golden light erupted from her chest, cascading outward in waves of purifying luminescence, the crystal shard amplifying it into a solar corona that seared the shadow self into wisps of fading smoke, its contemptuous form dissolving with a final, anguished wail into the ether. The pervasive darkness recoiled in submission, tendrils withdrawing to unveil a nascent lit path ahead, ethereal glow tracing runes of affirmation along the walls, promising tangible progress through the maze's heart, yet shadowed by the certainty of escalating enigmas, riddles etched in starlight, guardian illusions demanding moral reckonings, and deeper personal abysses lurking in the turns. Each decision henceforth became a deliberate stride toward self-affirmation, sculpting her identity through trials of growth, courage, and unyielding authenticity, peeling away the villager to reveal the nascent keeper beneath. In that transformative epiphany, as the maze's pulse synced tentatively with her quickening heart, Elara grasped the profound truth. This labyrinth was no terminal prison, but an indispensable crucible in her odyssey, a rites of passage forged tempering her spirit for the ultimate guardianship of the ether flame, where only the integrated self could wield its eternal light against the encroaching void. If this visceral plunge into the shadow maze's soul-shattering trials ignites your own inner flame of resilience and discovery, subscribe to traverse the next harrowing chapters of Elara's evolution. Share your reflections on these shadow confrontations, speculate on the deeper enigmas ahead, and let your engagement fan the collective blaze of adventure. What personal shadows might the keeper face next, and how will she transcend them? Your voices are the vital spark perpetuating this magical journey's luminescence. Part 7: The Heart of the Labyrinth and the Cave of Flame. The air thickened into a primordial soup, denser, colder, laced with an insistent humidity that clung to Elara's skin like the sweat of anticipation, as she delved deeper into the shadow maze's sanctum. What had been an atemporal entity, a timeless void of shifting illusions, now synchronized its arcane pulse with the grand rhythm of the universe itself. The cosmic ebb of stars birthing and dying, the eternal cadence of creation's forge. Each laborious step resonated with mounting gravity, drawing her inexorably toward the ancient core, the pulsating epicenter of her odyssey. The Cave of Flame, whispered in legends as the womb where ether's essence first kindled, a nexus binding mortal realms to divine equilibrium. She sensed herself breaching a veil into a liminal dimension, where seamless black stones, veined with quartz that gleamed like captured moonlight, emitted an inner luminescence, casting ethereal glows that danced across her path. The enclosing walls undulated with subtle organic breaths, alive and hyper-aware of her intrusion, exhaling faint vapors scented with incense of bygone eras, inhaling her essence as if appraising the keeper's purity. Her steps lightened paradoxically, propelled by an unseen buoyancy, while her breaths deepened into meditative rhythms, the air itself infused with ancient wisdom, particles of arcane lore that seeped into her lungs, awakening dormant intuitions and steadying her spirit against the precipice of revelation. At the cave's yawning entrance, a jagged maw framed by crystalline stalactites dripping with iridescent dew, Elara paused, her trembling fingers tracing the scorched, blackened surfaces, rough-hewn by eons of elemental fury yet warm with latent power. This was no ordinary portal but the ultimate threshold where base matter transcended into spirit, a convergence point etched by celestial architects. The cave embodied far more than cavernous stone. It was a symbolic sanctuary, an alchemical crucible representing humanity's perennial quest for true gnosis, transcending the ephemeral shadows of superficial existence, the illusions of village routines and unexamined doubts, toward unvarnished enlightenment. From within emanated a light neither blinding solar blaze nor flickering torch, but a profound flame pulsating in mesmerizing hues of molten gold, shimmering silver and crimson embers. A living entity, enigmatic and sentient, its flames licking the air without consuming, whispering invitations to ascend beyond mere perception. It evoked Plato's timeless allegory of the cave, the primal fire casting deceptive shadows on prison walls, yet beckoning prisoners to emerge into the sunlit truth of reality, shattering chains of ignorance with its radiant call. For Elara, this manifestation transcended her mythic mission. It heralded her personal apotheosis, a liberation from the fetters of doubt's darkness, a metamorphic passage from benighted ignorance to the luminous epiphany of inner truth, where self-knowledge ignited like dawn's first spark. With measured resolve, she advanced into the cave's embrace, the intensifying heat of the flame reverberating not as scorching peril but as a harmonious vibration in her soul, syncing her heartbeat to its eternal thrum. Every facet of the sanctum revealed dual natures, protective bastions etched with warding sigils that repelled chaotic voids, and revelatory tapestries unveiling ancestral lore. Walls adorned with petroglyphs and luminous drawings, faded yet vivid, narrating forgotten epics, rituals of flame kindling under auroral skies, prayers intoned by robed forebears to preserve balance, heroic sagas of keepers past who faced cosmic unraveling. In the sacred penumbra at the cavern's heart, Elara knelt reverently before the flame of ether, a transcendent, breathing force suspended in a crystalline basin, its form fluid and ever morphing, cycling through spectral colors without diminishment, burning with a silent, nurturing fire that warmed the spirit without charring flesh. She perceived its profound duality, the exquisite weight and sublime beauty of its existence, embodying life's indomitable essence and the precarious dance of balance. Light's generative warmth counterpoised against shadow's purifying forge, a primordial power demanding vigilant guardianship lest entropy claim the cosmos. As the flame's prismatic light played across her upturned face, illuminating tear-streaked cheeks and resolute eyes, Elara glimpsed reflections not solely of her singular fate, but the interdependent tapestry of all existence. Villagers tending hearths in stone breeze, forests whispering ancient oaths, realms teetering on oblivion's brink. It forged an indelible connection across temporal veils, past keepers' triumphs echoing in its glow, present perils pulsing in its flicker, future destinies inscribed in its unwavering core. Yet in that pinnacle of contemplation and willing surrender, a sobering truth crystallized. Bearing this fire was no unalloyed boon, but a mantle laced with onerous burden, the isolation of eternal watchfulness, the peril of faltering resolve, the moral crucibles that would temper or break her. The cave itself murmured ancient promises of empowerment and stern warnings of hubris's cost, its acoustics carrying ethereal choruses of spectral ancestors. Elara rose transformed, not merely guardian, but a phoenix woman, emblem of unquenchable hope and resilient fortitude, ready to shepherd the flame's light into the fraying world. If the profound resonance of the Cave of Flame and Elara's awakening ignites your soul's inner light, subscribe to accompany her on the revelations and burdens ahead, sharing your insights to illuminate our shared quest. What trials might test the Keeper's newfound resolve? Your engagement fans the eternal flame of this adventure and revelation. Part 8: The Burden of the Flame and the Acceptance of Fate. The cavern throbbed like the eternal heart of creation itself, its primordial rhythm reverberating through every fiber of Elara's weary, yet resolute body, syncing her pulse to the cosmos' inexorable cadence. The ether flame transcended mere luminescence. It was a sentient, living entity, inhaling the void's chill and exhaling radiant vitality in the cavern's perpetual twilight, transmuting encroaching shadows into multifaceted reflections of its unique and sublime power. A dynamic prism refracting the spectrum of existence. It shifted ceaselessly in hypnotic undulations, now blazing in opulent golden hues that bathed the jagged walls in solar warmth, illuminating petroglyphs of forgotten epochs, then shimmering in ethereal silver veils laced with deep crimson embers, evoking the raw cycles of life's bloom, death's quietus, and rebirth's fierce resurgence, as if the flame encapsulated the universe's perpetual alchemy. Elara approached this divine nexus with profound reverence, each measured step a deliberate act of surrender laced with unyielding courage, yielding to the inexorable destiny that had summoned her from Stonebreeze's humble hearths despite the tempests of doubt and primal fear raging within. The emanation from the flame bore no scorching malice. Instead, its nurturing warmth permeated her core like a balm for the soul, peeling back buried strata of her existence, latent potentials stirring from ancestral slumber, visceral sensations of empowerment flooding her veins, awakening empathic resonances to the world's veiled harmonies and dissonances, as if the fire rewove her very essence thread by luminous thread. Kale, the silver guardian, maintained a vigilant silence at the periphery, his starry eyes tracing her every motion with omniscient poise, attuned to the epical magnitude of this convergence. His telepathic voice emerged soft yet resonant, akin to a sacred incantation whispered across millennia. The flame you are destined to bear is no inert blaze, but the precarious fulcrum of all creation's balance, light's generative forge counterweight against shadow's necessary tempering. It exacts unrelenting sacrifice. Moments of solitude amid chaos, vigilance against entropy's creep, and above all unflinching truth to self and cosmos, lest imbalance unravel the threads of reality. With her gaze riveted to the wavering light, its flames curling like inquisitive serpents, Elara beheld not merely the ephemeral present, but a torrent of fragmented visions bleeding across temporal barriers in vivid, prophetic clarity. Colossal mountains crumbling beneath roiling dark clouds pregnant with apocalyptic fury, unleashing torrents that scourged the earth, oceans roiling to volcanic boils, their depths birthing abyssal horrors as stars winked out one by one in the celestial vastness, heralding cosmic unraveling. Throngs of desperate peoples across fractured lands crying out in unison for a sliver of hope, parched realms thirsting for the restoration of equilibrium, their pleas echoing her own village's fragile dawn. The visceral weight of this apocalyptic revelation compressed her chest like the gravity of collapsing worlds, the guardian's mantle bearing down not solely in physical heft, but as a spiritual crucible, forging her into the indispensable bridge spanning the eternally adversarial forces of light's boundless nurture and shadow's purifying austerity. A profound sacred silence descended, enveloping the cavern like a veil of reverence, ruptured only by the flame's slow meditative crackle, each pop a syllable in the language of eternity. Elara whispered her vow, her words infused with raw intensity and the inexorable pull of destiny, voice steady despite the tremor of transformation. If this is the path etched for me by the stars and shadows alike, I accept the crushing weight and the searing light in equal measure. I will embody the keeper of the flame, steward of balance's delicate weave, even if it reshapes my core irrevocably, transmuting the pain and love I harbor into a vessel reborn, something transcendent and eternal. Asterisk. As the affirmation, "I do," escaped her lips, a cataclysmic wave of primordial energy surged through her being, the flame's archived eons recognizing and anointing her as its rightful heir in a symphony of validating resonance. Visions accelerated into a maelstrom, intimate vignettes of lives intertwined with the flame, tender farewells at dawnlit thresholds, Herculean achievements against void-spawned legions, heartrending losses that tempered resolve, collective odysseys of all prior keepers, their triumphs and torments imprinting upon her soul like indelible runes. The forged connection delved deep and intimately, binding her irrevocably to a power that transcended time's linear chains and space's confining bounds, its vibrations now an intrinsic hum within her bloodstream, granting crystalline clarity to pierce the veils of external shadows encroaching on the world, and the insidious doubts lurking in her own heart's recesses. In that transcendent instant, the cave transcended its role as mere ancient dwelling, metamorphosing into a hallowed altar of rebirth, where Elara emerged phoenix-like from her mortal shell, the legend of the keeper expanding across the annals of time, her acceptance rippling outward to fortify the fragile balance. If this saga of unyielding strength, profound sacrifice and illuminating light reverberates within your soul, subscribe to journey deeper into Elara's transformed path and the cosmic perils ahead. Share your visions of her guardianship, ignite conversations in the comments, and nurture this flame with our fellowship of seekers. What burdens or glories await the newly anointed keeper? Your passion sustains the eternal blaze of this mythic revelation. Part 9: The Rise of the Guardian. Emerging from the cave of flame's hallowed maw, Elara felt as if she had traversed not merely a physical passage through shadowed stone, but a cataclysmic metamorphosis deep within her essence, a quantum leap from mortal coil to divine conduit. The encircling air thrummed with revitalized energy, an invisible corona of warmth suffusing every cell of her body like liquid starfire, rewiring her synapses with the ether flame's eternal vigor. She transcended the timid villager who had tentatively crossed the forest's threshold into peril. Reborn, she pulsed as a living nexus tethered to the primordial power of the etheric flame, its cosmic heartbeat now echoing in her veins, granting her stewardship over realities unseen. Her eyes, once humble mirrors of Stonebreeze's mundane horizons, now gleamed with iridescent hues, flecks of molten gold and silver dancing in their depths, reflecting the inner flame that had taken root in her heart's sanctum. Each inhalation served as a visceral sacrament, a reminder of the colossal power she wielded, a force inexorable, demanding neither ignorance nor rejection, but humble reverence. It bestowed encyclopedic knowledge of antiquity's triumphs and follies, the acute responsibilities of the present's teetering scales, and prophetic glimpses of futures safeguarded by her unswerving vigilance, where light's dominion warded off entropy's grasp. Her once subtle senses amplified to superhuman acuity. Elara discerned the distant, sibilant whispers of ancient trees recounting sagas of yore, felt the subterranean pulse of life's inexhaustible vigor coursing through the loamy soil like rivers of vitality, and perceived the gossamer equilibrium between light's radiant expansion and shadow's contractile essence permeating the world's tapestry. She pierced the veil of human limitation, attuned to an invisible web of interconnections, the mycelial threads binding flora and fauna, spirits and elements, past epochs to emergent tomorrows, revealing the interdependent symphony where a single faltering note could unravel harmony. Yet Ascension's euphoria was alloyed with formidable challenges. The Guardian's mantle settled upon her shoulders with adamantine weight, a perpetual admonition of order's fragility against chaos's voracious tide. She foresaw relentless trials, tempests of doubt, incursions by void-born entities, and the inexorable entropy gnawing at creation's edges. Dark forces, insidious cabals of shadow weavers and forgotten abyssal lords, lurked in the periphery, their malevolent gazes fixed upon her, salivating to snuff the flame she now embodied, plunging realms into irrevocable night. In solemn introspection amid the forest's renewed embrace, Elara forged an unbreakable vow to her transformed self and the flame's indwelling spirit. She would embody vigilance as her creed, resilience as her armor, and tireless guardianship as her legacy. honoring the spectral lineage of antecedent keepers, their scars and sacrifices etched in the flame's memory. She pledged to blaze trails for successors yet unborn, sustaining light's beacon through abyssal voids, ensuring its flicker endured as defiance against oblivion. Kale, the steadfast silver sentinel, observed with profound respect etched in his luminous gaze, his presence evolving from guide to indispensable ally, bound by oaths older than the mountains. Together they ventured forth from the cave's threshold into the uncharted expanse beyond, twilight glades yielding to mist-shrouded valleys, cognizant that each dawn heralded fresh skirmishes for light's supremacy, alliances forged in fire, and betrayals lurking in guise. Elara's awakening as keeper crystallized not as mere personal apotheosis, but the phoenix-like rebirth of an archetypal hope, now entrusted to intrepid hands and a heart ablaze with unquenchable purpose, poised to recalibrate the cosmos' waning balance. If Elara's transcendent rise as guardian stirs your spirit to embrace light's vigilant call, subscribe to march alongside her through ensuing battles and revelations, sharing your insights to weave our communal tapestry. What dark adversaries or steadfast allies do you envision testing her resolve? Your fellowship fans the undying flame of hope in this epic saga. Part 10: The Return and the New Beginning. When Elara finally emerged from the Cave of Flame's transformative embrace, the encircling forest had undergone a profound metamorphosis, no longer a shadowed labyrinth of trials but a vibrant, pulsating tapestry alive with the resonant essence of the ether flame now kindled eternally within her core. The air shimmered lighter, infused with a subtle golden hue of nascent hope that gilded the mist and softened the edges of ancient boughs, as if the woodland itself rejoiced in her apotheosis. Leaves rustled in gentle, synchronized dances to the primordial rhythm of creation's heartbeat, their whispers a choral celebration of her awakening. Fronds bowing in deference, flowers unfurling petals in bursts of radiant color, and even the soil exhaling a fertile perfume of renewal, acknowledging the keeper's return as harbinger of restored equilibrium. The path winding back to Stonebreeze transcended a mere physical trek through familiar trails. It unfolded as the deliberate strides of one reborn from the forge of destiny, each footfall imprinting the earth with awakened purpose. A deeper, omniscient awareness infused her being, transfiguring the once ordinary landscape. Weathered stones now pulsed with embedded memories of geologic epochs, sentinel trees murmured ancestral secrets in their creaking limbs, and the wind's caress carried layered meanings, forewarnings of distant tempests, echoes of harmonious cycles, rendering the world a living codex of light and shadow. She beheld the village not through the innocent, unscarred eyes of her former self, but with the vigilant, sagacious gaze of a protector, attuned to fragility's undercurrents and the subtle fraying of balance's weave. Upon her arrival at Stonebreeze's mossy gates, as the first rays of dawn crested the mountains, she was met with a wave of astonished and reverent stares, villagers pausing mid-task, tools slipping from calloused hands, their faces alight with unspoken awe. A profound silence enveloped the settlement, more eloquent than any jubilant cry, as Elara radiated an ethereal inner luminescence that permeated the air like dawn's first blush, warming hearts and stirring dormant hopes. Children clustered at her skirts, their wide eyes brimming with childlike reverence, sensing the mythic aura cloaking her form. Elders nodded with tear-glazed recognition, feeling the seismic shift in the ether and the resonant tug in their hearts, as if the flame's distant thrum had brushed their souls. Yet Elara spoke sparingly, her utterances measured and weighted with profundity, her gestures imbued with silent, symbolic import. A raised hand blessing the fields, a steady gaze imparting unspoken resolve. She comprehended that her odyssey within the labyrinth and cave marked not culmination, but genesis. The true mission burgeoned anew, shadowed by primordial adversaries, ancient entities of void and discord, as timeless as the stars' forge, who had sensed her rebirth across the veils, their tendrils coiling in anticipation, plotting incursions to quench the light she safeguarded. On crystalline starry nights, she sought solitude atop the village's sentinel hill, seated amid wild herbs, feeling the flame's insistent throb in her chest like a second heartbeat, a vigilant sentinel against encroaching night. In these contemplative interludes, she honed her preparations for the gauntlet ahead, meditative communions to steel her will, strategic divinations to map shadow incursions, and unyielding resolve for the perpetual strife, skirmishes against darkness's insidious dance in hidden crevices, an eternal arbitration maintaining the delicate equilibrium where light's nurture-tempered shadows forge. ensuring neither dominated to cataclysm. She internalized her sacred duty, sustaining the flame's blaze not for solitary glory, but as custodian for all who harbored faith in a realm where goodness could burgeon resiliently, even amid shadow's embrace. Stonebreeze hearths, the forest's verdant wards and distant lands yearning for harmony's restoration. Before surrendering to slumber's veil, Elara would whisper to the nocturnal wind, her voice a clarion infused with communal destiny. Keep your flame burning undimmed. Tread boldly through the shadow's maze. For my journey entwines with yours in the grand tapestry. These words rippled outward, a benediction seeding courage in listening hearts, heralding a nascent era. An epic defined by rekindled hope, indomitable courage, and the triumphant radiance of light reclaiming its eternal vigil. If Elara's triumphant return and the dawn of her guardianship resonate deeply within your soul, subscribe to chronicle each unfolding chapter of this epic saga, share its luminous essence to propagate the light, and unite with our fellowship of seekers who eternally nurture the flame of hope. What emergent threats or alliances might challenge the Keeper in this new dawn? Your reflections and presence are the vital